Hi, it's Shadow Hero 90, welcoming you to my show, Sexism in Movies and TV, where I more or less call out the insane level of misandry that these retards in Hollywood put in both film and television. Now, I've been doing this show for 7 years. But the reason as to why what you'll be seeing this season could be worse is the fact that it's marketed towards children. A demographic that doesn't exactly know how the world works and can easily be misled. Now, what I reviewed in the Season 6 finale was gynocentric, sexist, and misandric to a degree where there's no way I would be able to get through a third viewing of this piece of shit. I'm currently working on this book. In this book, I'm going to be proposing a theory. And part of that theory is that gynocentric shows, like the ones that I will be attacking this season, are the reasons why young boys and young men have such unbelievably low self-esteem. And it's because that all of this sexist bullcrap is marketed to kids. So, anyways, I welcome you to the 7th season of Sexism in Movies and TV. The Fairly Odd Parents are no strangers to, misandry. They've partaken in it a lot. And I have reviewed some of their most gynocentric episodes. But in this episode, I'm going to be reviewing Season 10 of The Fairly Odd Parents. Now, I'm not going to lie, Season 10 was an atrocity. It was so misandric and gynocentric that, well, the new character they added was nothing but a Mary Sue, and the reception of this season went over so bad that not only did it get The Fairly Odd Parents canceled, but it basically was what drove Butch Hartman away from Nickelodeon and from The Fairly Odd Parents, along with causing Nickelodeon to not want to have anything to do with the franchise for at least half a decade. And in this episode, you're gonna see me rip every episode from this gynocentric season to shreds. And yes, I will be leaving links to everything on screen in the description. Okay, this is the first episode of Season 10, The Big Fairy Share Scare. The introduction of Chloe Carmichael, and the episode where Timmy was more or less well, he was kind of, well, to be blunt, the writers basically did everything they could to make Timmy look like a selfish asshole just to make Chloe look better in comparison. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. Chloe is a Mary Sue. Plain and simple. Butch Hartman really messed up when he added her in. And he admitted on YouTube that the reason that he added this character to the show is because one of the higher-ups wanted him to include a female character who would be a foil to Timmy. And since Butch couldn't, well, he was kind of working on burnout at the time, this is the best he could come up with. Even though there are other ways a character like this could work. Now remember that, because there is going to be a brief mention of what I just said sometime nearing the end of the review. But anyways, everyone loves Chloe, and yeah, they don't like Timmy at all. Yeah, and then when Timmy gets home, he finds out he has to share Cosmo and Wanda with Chloe. So anyways, the episode just boils down to Timmy being selfish and trying to do whatever he can to avoid having to share Cosmo and Wanda, but then comes to the fact that this is an inevitability, whether he likes it or not, and makes friends with Chloe because the plot demands it. Okay, next episode, Riddle Me This. Yeah, and they are using Catman, their Batman parody, voiced by Adam West, the actor who played Batman in that campy 60s show that turned out the way it did and had him playing Batman only because comic books had hit rock bottom at the time the show was made. Apparently it's Adam's big day, but Timmy doesn't care and is too obsessed with a mobile game about hillbillies to go visit him. Because, well, I'm just gonna say it. Well, I'm gonna say it again, but this season, Timmy got a character derailment so that they can make the Mary Sue they introduced look better by comparison. Which is one of the worst things you can do when writing for TV. So anyways, I'm just gonna get the elephant out of the room. Catman is a parody of the 1960s Batman series. He was even played by Adam West, the actor who played Batman in that show. And it was the way it was because at the time, comic books had hit rock bottom, and believe me, the parody Catman here is offensive, well, it's un-American, and Adam West seriously should see it as a big middle finger to him. So anyways, the crux of the episode is that Catman thinks Timmy was kidnapped, and he mistakes Chloe for his old sidekick, Catgirl, because, yeah, these two look so much alike, and and he even throws her into the suit, and they go to rescue Timmy, who they think is kidnapped, but is really just playing a mobile game. Next episode, Mayor or Not. Timmy and Chloe wish that Mr. Turner would be elected mayor, which violates the rules, but the writers completely ignore it, and, this idiot just passes a bunch of deranged laws. Okay, episode 4, Girly Squirrely. The premise of this one is that Chloe wishes she could be in the Squirrel Scouts, and since their group was disbanded, Timmy thinks he's out one nightmare, but since Timmy's idiot dad wants to do this and got a lot of money from Blondie here, he more or less reinstated their troop. She wishes to join, and it just makes Timmy's life miserable. Isn't an exaggeration. In every episode that the Squirrely Scouts appear in, it's made more than obvious that they can't survive in the wild, and that Timmy could actually get hurt by being a part of the Squirrely Scouts. And in this episode, that shows, because he even has nightmares about it. Now, this is just a minor nitpick, but if Chloe can wish to become a member of the Squirrel Scouts, then why can't Timmy wish to be in the Cream Puff Scouts and not end up getting his ass kicked by nature? Birthday battle. Turns out Timmy and Chloe were born on the same day, and they fight over getting the birthday of their dream. Episode 6, The Fair Bears, Chloe's favorite show, and it's heavily implied that this show made her the way she is. Chloe wishes that the Fair Bears were real. Fair Bears then brainwash Timmy and Wanda. Chloe and Cosmo basically get Mr. Crocker to help them get rid of the Fair Bears. How? Well, I forget how, but he does it, and everything's back to normal. The end. Episode 7, Return of the Losers. Basically, from what I read, it's most likely just a rehash of the Losers' first appearance. Episode 8, Sash and a Rash. Chloe gets a rash that they were told came from stress, so she wishes to be lazy, and everything goes to hell without her. And it's basically just to say, look at what a perfect good person she is, and look at how much better she is than Timmy. And then we find out that the rash actually came from the Person of the Year sash she was wearing. The end. Episode 9, Fish Out of Water. Mr. Turner wants to win a fishing trophy. And since Chloe thinks fishing is mean, she wishes that the fish could fight back. And all the fishes fight back. And in all fairness, this whole thing started because Mr. Turner just wanted to win a fishing trophy. He wasn't trying to murder Dinkelberg or do anything else that would be considered illegal. He just wanted to win a fishing trophy. Episode 10, Animal Crockers. Chloe wishes that the Crockeroos were no longer an endangered species. They terrorize Dimsdale, Mr. Crocker, their king, and he forces the town to reenact his high school prom so he could be voted prom king. They're scared off in the end by Timmy because he looks like a beaver. Well, a type of beaver that's their natural predator. The episode ends with Crocker being locked up with the Crockeroos at the zoo. And I'd like to point out a bit of hypocrisy. Both Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon have done stuff like this on shows aimed at kids. They would never do this to a female character. The only reason that it's allowed to happen to Mr. Crocker at all is because he's a man. Something that I guarantee you of. Okay, episode 11, One Flew Over the Crocker's Nest. The premise is that Cosmo sneezes on Mr. Crocker, giving him the fairy flu, and they probably go inside his body to destroy the virus. SpongeBob did it better. In fact, SpongeBob did it better twice. Episode 12, Booby Trapped. The premise is that Cosmo and Wanda stay at Chloe's house, and yeah, Chloe's parents decide, because Cosmo and Wanda transformed into birds instead of fish, that they would return them to the wild. And Crocker ventures out into the wild to poach Cosmo and Wanda. Episode 13, Blue Angel. Okay, the premise of this one is that apparently Chloe did so much good that she turned Anti-Fairy World into more or less, well, a clean forest that would be seen on Earth. I am self-aware of I know how stupid this is. I'm pretty sure the writers were self-aware of that as well. Most likely. So anyways, the Anti-Fairy Council sends Foop undercover to stop Chloe's good deeds. So Foop goes undercover at Dimsdale Elementary as, well, the new popular girl that both Timmy and Cosmo now have a crush on. I can only assume that this was the writer's idea to parody both Chloe and Trixie Tang. So anyways, Foop's mission is to basically try to get Chloe to do something bad, or at the very least, to frame her for doing something bad, and when it eventually doesn't go wrong, because she forgives him at every opportunity, he more or less tries to kill her. Loses the fight, and is turned back to normal. Chloe forgives him, and Anti-Fairy World is turned back into a fantasy forest place. Episode 14, Marked Man. Timmy introduces Chloe to Mark Chang, who she then convinces to reveal himself as an alien to the entire world, and as you would expect, the government doesn't react well to this. Episode 15, Clark Laser. The premise of this episode is that Timmy and Chloe saved the life of Dark Laser's toy, Flipsy, and therefore he has to become their cyborg bodyguard for all eternity, I assume, I forget, because of some kind of cyborg code of honor. But, in all fairness, he's supposed to be a parody of Darth Vader, and it was stated within Fairly Odd Parents canon that dark side users or parodies of them could lie their butts off and there would be no consequences. But I can only assume the writers ignored that detail just so they could do this episode and have the joke that Dark Laser is completely overprotective of Timmy and Chloe. Episode 16, Married to the Mom. The concept is that Timmy and Chloe wish a girlfriend into existence for Mr. Crocker, and his mom does not like that fact. Episode 17, Witch's Wish. The premise is that Timmy and Chloe end up switching bodies. Episode 18, Nuts and Dangerous. It's basically just a rehash of the film competition episode from, I think, season 2 or 3. The only difference is that Mr. Turner wants to bond with Timmy in this episode. FairyCon. Mr. Crocker makes clones of Cosmo and Wanda to get into a fairy convention. It's basically just a rehash of his first appearance. The Hungry Games. Timmy helps Chloe pick out her favorite dystopian movie, The Hunger Games, or in this case, The Hungry Games, which it's basically just a cheap reason for the writers to make a Hunger Games parody. Spring Breakup. Yeah, it's spring break. Timmy's parents and Chloe's parents hate each other. And yeah, that's pretty much the conflict. Episode 22, Dimsdale Days. Chloe wants to be a mother so she can go to the Dimsdale Days Carnival with Timmy. Story-wise, this could actually have been used to insert new blood into the Fairly Odd Parents in a way that would change the status quo. But, like the first episode in this gynocentric show-ending season, I'll explain how that would work after I'm done ripping this season apart. Cat and Mouse. Timmy and Chloe help Catman prove to his girlfriend that he's a real superhero. You know, you'd think after the episode 9 Lives, which was supposed to be kind of like the end of Catman's story arc, that they wouldn't use him again on this show, but by season 10, the writers really, they have no new ideas and will stoop to anything from the past 9 seasons. Episode 24, Chip Off the Old Croc. Crocker he basically makes his nephew his apprentice in hunting fairies. Episode 25, Space Cadet. The Squirrely Scouts go to space to plant a flag on unfamiliar terrain. Episode 26, Summer Bummer. Because Chloe is spending summer vacation studying, she starts making wishes in her sleep. Episode 27, Hair Raiser. Yeah, Chloe basically wishes to free their class's pet rabbit, Mr. Cuddles, and he turns out to be a freaking monster. I can only assume it was because Mr. Crocker experimented on him, but then again, I did not see this episode. Okay, episode 28, The Kale Patch Caper. This episode is about Mr. Turner buying the last individual Kale Patch doll. Chloe considers stealing it. She does. But then at the end it's okay because they decide to share it. The obvious hypocrisy here is that if Timmy stole something, there would actually be consequences to his actions. Chloe does it. It basically ends in a way where there are no consequences because a middle ground has been found. Atlantis. The characters go to Atlantis, save it from a sea monster. Nothing here. Okay, episode 30, Chloe Rules. The premise is that Chloe becomes a hall monitor, and, well, the authority goes to her head. Episode 31, Croc in the House. Mr. Crocker's mom leaves him home alone for the very first time. Nothing of substance here. 32, Tardy Sauce. Chloe wants to break her attendance record. Timmy drags Chloe to a taco stand, and they get a message from Mr. Crocker saying that school isn't cancelled. And I really gotta say, this really does paint Timmy in a bad light. Well, the episode is about them trying to get Chloe back to school before anyone notices, and he's apparently more focused on tacos than going to school. Yes, it's established that Timmy doesn't like school, but in all fairness, this episode really paints him as a delinquent who's skipping school. And on the other hand, this is kind of what Chloe wanted. It's like she doesn't understand the concept. The episode paints Chloe as stupid and Timmy as a scumbag who would deserve detention. Episode 33, Nightwits. The Turners want to go on this medieval-themed cruise for their family vacation, but they can't afford it. So they try to simulate the experience at home, and of course, this involves humiliating Timmy by dressing him up like a princess. If I'm going to be completely honest, if this one gag hadn't have been in the episode, this storyline would have been completely... this would have been watchable. I would have been willing to watch this. It wouldn't have sucked. It would actually be, well, good. Nightwits was an episode that had potential, but one gag dragged it down, and there were other episodes in this season with potential that did get dragged down, but this is the one that got dragged down and had all its potential stripped away from it because of one gag. Episode 34, Dimsdale's Got Talent. Well, Mr. Bickles holds a talent show. Timmy doesn't have a talent. It's just the typical talent show episode that we've seen a million times over. Episode 35, Certifiable Super Sitter. The mysterious Mr. Enter reviewed this, and I agree with him on everything he said. Well, he didn't say that this episode is a gynocentric sack of crap, but I am. Because, in all fairness, this, if anything, could easily be mistaken for sabotage. The idea of Cosmo and Wanda winning a free dinner so they need someone to babysit Poof, who just coincidentally came home from Spellementary School, is a novel concept if it didn't come out in the worst season possible. In all fairness, this episode is basic, like I said before. This sounds like, this episode feels like it was written by someone who hates the Fairly Odd Parents. And I truly mean that. This episode, it literally embodies everything wrong with Fairly Odd Parents Season 10. Chloe being a Mary Sue. The fact that all the male characters were literally dumbed down to make the female characters look better by comparison. The fact that this is the only episode, to my knowledge, as of the recording, that Vicky appeared in, even though when the show began, she was the main villain. And the hypocrisy. You gotta make all the male characters act like dumbasses, but referencing Saw is apparently mature. That's mature enough. But having capable and competent male characters apparently is not allowed. Hey, if you can reference Jigsaw, then you can have competent male characters who always save the day, like on The Batman, that, just for the record, had an episode that featured a South Park reference. I do agree with Mr. Enter when he said that this episode perfectly shows how worn in and beaten into the ground the dumbass dad trope is. They gave him the IQ of a baby in this episode, just to make the Mary Sue look even more competent. Vicky is completely out of character in this episode. She loves money. It's why she babysits. And when she finds out that someone else was babysitting at the Turners, she shows up and basically goes psycho. She's not getting paid for what she's doing. So why would she even bother? Because money was her #1 motivation in the early seasons. There's the fact that Mr. Turner is an adult. Vicky treats him the same exact way she treats Timmy, and he has absolutely no reaction. He works to pay the bills that keep that house standing. He could easily kick Vicky out if he wanted. And despite this show actually having the balls to reference Saw, it apparently doesn't have the balls to have Mr. Turner act in a realistic manner and kick Vicky out of his house the moment she starts treating him like shit. Apparently, the writers forgot that Mr. and Mrs. Turner were equally as stupid. It was the one thing in the 2000s that this show did better than everything else on Nickelodeon. It's why that outside of SpongeBob, at the time, it was Nickelodeon's longest running show outside of SpongeBob. Oh, but if this retard actually acted realistically, we couldn't have a Chloe versus Vicky fight scene. In short, Certifiable Super Sitter is a steaming lump of crap. It feels like an act of sabotage written by someone who hates the Fairly Odd Parents. And it is officially the worst episode of Season 10. And that's saying a lot. Episode 36. Goldie Crocs and the Three Fairbears. Well, it's basically Mr. Crocker teaming up with the Fairbears to get their revenge on Timmy and Chloe during a Squirrely Scouts camp trip. Okay, final episode, episode 37, Fancy Schmancy. Basically, there's this holiday that Timmy and Chloe want to spend together, but Timmy's dad says no because apparently Chloe's parents don't make as much as he does, which is actually a stupid premise, as it's been shown in multiple episodes that Mr. Turner busts his ass to get for him and his family to have the life that they do. Him suddenly acting like they're rich is kind of just a plot that was thought up just for the sake of having this plot, even if they had to throw continuity out the window to do it. Okay, now that I've completed the worst season of Fairly Odd Parents, I'm basically going to talk about the wasted potential of this season. Starting with the Mary Sue herself, Chloe Carmichael. Now, this... okay, here's a better alternative to what we got. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Butch wasn't on burnout and did this plot right. Instead of Chloe being, a kid that Timmy has to share Cosmo and Wanda with, maybe instead she could be a sub-godchild for Cosmo and Wanda. Basically, make her Timmy's sidekick, or a student, someone he has to train or teach how to be like him. All Butch Hartman would have to do is make it so the first episode of Season 10 involves Timmy wishing for a sidekick. And then boom! Cosmo and Wanda could just poof Chloe into existence. Oh, and one more thing that would be really important: don't make her a Mary Sue. And I just thought of a way that you could tie it all together. Have Timmy wish for a sidekick, Cosmo and Wanda poof Chloe into existence. It's great at first, but she won't give Timmy even a moment to himself, is around him constantly, and Chloe would go through this character arc of learning that Timmy does need some time to himself. Dimsdale Days did kind of have a interesting premise, but in all fairness, here's how it could have been better and how it could have pumped new blood into the Fairly Odd Parents. Chloe wishes to be a mom. Just fuse her with Mrs. Turner. In some cosmic way, she somehow becomes Timmy's mom, which would basically cause some kind of New 52 style reboot. Just say that reality was warped because Chloe and Mrs. Turner were fused together, and then you could basically reset everything. All the continuity. If Chloe was merged with Mrs. Turner, it'd basically be a character who'd be both insane enough and stupid enough to leave her son home with Vicky, so you could still have the premise of the seasons back when Vicky was actually relevant to this series, and it would be, I'm not saying that the show should have repeated itself, but with a concept like this, you could have the franchise could literally just repeat itself, but do a more modern take on the episode. And the best way to do it would be, just have Chloe accidentally wish that she was Timmy's mom. Okay, and the final one I'm going to talk about is Nightwits. Just remove this joke entirely, and the episode would not only work, but it would feel like one of those classic Fairly Odd Parents episodes. In short, Fairly Odd Parents Season 10 was a steaming load of crap. Only 3 episodes had potential, and they would actually need to have been rewritten to do so. Oh, and just to mention this, I'm actually going to be writing a Fairly Odd Parents spec script that I'm going to put up on DeviantArt. So, the blunt of the plot is, it's going to be the first episode of this horrible franchise-killing season done right. And with that all said and done, I hereby declare this review of the worst season of Fairly Odd Parents officially over.